draw the outline of the room you're in. You can grab these corners then and square them up, assuming you're in a square room, which I guess is not always a safe assumption. But then we click on one of the longer walls, the longest wall if possible. And let's say that wall was 18'6", and it is sheetrock gloss. And it will pop up and says, do you want me to set all the walls to sheetrock gloss? So I'll say yes. And so it used then the shape of the room that I drew and the dimension I put in for that one wall to guess the dimensions of the others. Now, we, of course, will know that we got that wrong because that's how the real world works. And so we can grab these walls and drag them around a little bit. We could type in a dimension here if we wanted to say this was actually a 9'2", at which point you can see now that it messed up our thing. So we can drag this around. We can unlock a wall that we've locked to allow us to edit it. So we have a pretty wide variety of ways to edit our room. Once you kind of got the room laid out, we need to give it a name. So we'll call this corner bedroom. We'll say it's an 8'2" ceiling because that's real common somewhere in my imagination. And we'll go with carpet as our floor type. So then that's the basics for drawing a room, but because this tool is specifically for drawing, so I'm going to grab here and I'm going to say and mark the walls where they're wet. So this is where you teach the system essentially what kind of drawing you're trying to do. So I'm going to add another room. I'm going to make it shaped like this, because I'm a glutton for punishment. I added one too many corners there. Now these green lines mean that the rooms have, the walls are squared up, or pretty close to it anyways. And so I'll do the same basic process in here. We'll say sheetrock gloss again, apply that surface to all the walls. And this time I'm only gonna say it's wet in this area here. All right, we'll set a name, and it pulled the same height and floor type with that from the other one I put in there. We'll click on the symbol. I'll set the auto zoom, and then we would put this together. Now, if this had been drawn rationally, this would have fit, but since I just kind of made numbers up, it doesn't. But what we'll do is we'll go ahead and just lay it out how it might have looked, and we'll click save. So I kind of went through that process. It was a little bit long there, but the goal there is to create something that your Xactimate person can use to go in and draw sketches. You can put doors and windows in there, and they'll affect the calculations. But what that gives us now is it tells us what our square foot, our linear feet, and our cubic feet of these rooms are, so that when we go to the equipment and readings tab, I can click right here, this big orange button, and it's orange because there's no equipment on the job, and clearly there's water. And so now it can tell us what our recommendations are. So it's recommending that we put 1 DHU, 1 air scrubber, and 7 wall fans. These recommendations are based off of the type of equipment that you have. So if you've got, like I think in our demo system here, we have a bunch of Phoenix equipment. So I'm going to open a new job and just kind of show that to you real quick. I will go to Equipment Manager. And so here I have, it's a Phoenix 200 Max. And so I have a couple Phoenix 200 Maxes in here. And I'm going to go ahead and just put one more. PF 5008, item number D106. All right, so I just added a new DU. So I'm going to go ahead and place some equipment in here. So I'm going to click on corner bedroom. And if I go to summary, it tells me all of the available information that we know about it. We don't have any recommended center air fans, but we do need to put 5 wall fans in here. So I'm going to go to the equipment tab, and I'm going to first look for that DHU that I just added. So here's my DHU, D106. Here, it also found using the 106 a fan and an air scrubber, but they're being used in other projects on the system. So they highlight where they're at right now. I just grab this and drag it to wherever this DHU is located. And it popped up and asking me for a reading associated with that DHU. Now, if your DHUs don't have an hours meter, it doesn't have to be here. We actually don't even have to save this reading right now. I'm going to go ahead and close it, and we'll come back to that. And then, sorry, do you have a question?
I do.
Okay.
And I know, like, right now you all can't, I know even Clint was having an issue with showing the mobile app on here, but in a perfect world, or in our world, this is going to be happening in the field.
That's correct.
Our other
Yes.
officer probably won't be putting the equipment into the home in the system here. So is this something that they can do on the mobile app? Can they move a DHU from being just here in the office to placing it at a site on the mobile app, or is that something that they have to write down or take note of, and then we have to?
No, they can definitely do that in the field. So this is basically a web page. So just for the sake of showing you kind of how this stuff works, I have some tools on here, and I can tell my browser to pretend to be here. Right now, it's pretending to be an iPad. All right. So you can kind of see the difference. This menu, which was over here on the left side, is now a pop-up menu. I can click up here into the bedroom again. I can go to the equipment tab. I can see that my fan was on here, or my DHU. And then just from the iPad, see, it even popped the soft keyboard. That's cool. So now I would type in like part of the serial number of the fan that I had. So I'm going to grab this fan here because we're no longer testing at the show. I'm going to put it on here, and it's going to ask me to confirm that I want to move it from the testing at the show job. If this fan had not been placed there, it would just do it. So I'm going to go ahead and place all 5 fans in here. It'll ask me each time. Now, it's popping up and asking for an hours meter, and this basically is referencing the type of fan that we have on here. We have these Phoenix axial fans, and they have an hour meter. But we can turn that off or on for you depending on how your business operates and what equipment you're using, that kind of stuff. Also, for the record, I am totally not a drying technician, so ignore my fan placement. It's just haphazard. That's the fan placement tools I use.
Now, is there rated when our hours are up on our hour meter? Let's say we have 48 hours for our fan. We put it at 48 hours, and the 48 hours is up. Will it send someone a reminder or a text or an email, or will something pop up saying, hey, you got this large DHU and the hours are expired?
Well, so what it's doing in that case is it's putting in the hour meter that's actually on the system. So if you had a fan that has run for 370 something hours on various jobs, you would put in on the hour meter the time they set the equipment 370 hours. Then what it's doing is the system is smart enough, and it's allowing you to figure things out. So if you show up to monitor that job tomorrow, 26 hours later, and the equipment has only run for 12, then it's going to be able to let you know, hey, this equipment's been turned off, right? It's only run for 12 of the 26 hours it should have been running. And that allows you to know if somebody's turning equipment off at night, why is this job taking longer to dry? Because the hour meters can be tracked that way. Not so that the hour meters run backwards like a timer to say, hey, this should be, you need to check this at this period of time. It's more just valid.
However, we do have a chamber idle alarm that we can turn on that says if there's been no readings put on this job and it has equipment on it and no one's touched it for 48 hours, it'll turn red back in the jobs list.
Correct.
With a chamber idle flag so that you need to go check it out.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that.
Hey, no problem. So one of the other kind of cool things in here is like this room, right, doesn't have 4 walls. So if you have a door in here, you have to have a company, you have to say, okay, wall 0 or wall 1 is the first wall to the left of the door that you walk in on as long as the door is close to a corner, or something annoying like that. So with this system, you don't have to do that. When you select wall 0, it highlights that wall for you, so you know what your readings are that you're putting in. And as I work my way around here, you'll see that it's highlighting the wall for me as I go through this. So your technicians no longer have to wonder, what's wall 6. You can edit these reading points if you needed to add cabinets or change a surface type of these. There's different tools that you can use in here to make sure that this is accurately reflecting the drawing that you're using. And then another cool thing we can do in here is this. So here's this DHU reading that from the Phoenix 200 Max we dropped on here. I want to go ahead and put in a reading now. Let's say that the DHU inlet is 78 degrees because the room's not hot yet, and the reading's 125. Note that it calculated the GPP for me, so your techs don't have to be running a separate app to figure out what the GPP is. So then I'm going to say it's outputting air at 92 with a 30 GPP. That's too high because I want to have a problem. So then this will take the LGR tables for the equipment that you're using. When I click save, this should pop an alarm. And there we go. So grain depression is out of range. Acceptable range would be between 15 and 25, but it was -6. So I clearly put in my readings backwards, or I put in some bad data. So the technician then needs to acknowledge this alarm. So then they could go back and fix it. So the DHU outlet inlet was 51. Yeah, it was -6. It should be lower. So I would click on this. I'm sorry, I would go to reading history. I come down here to my DHU outlet, and I would change this to be
15.
15. All right. And then I would save it. So now this is a more acceptable reading. But now if your job, your project manager or somebody back in the main office, they're going to be able to see right here that a reading was saved out of spec. So that now you have a better idea of what's going on in the office as you're progressing through things. So anyway, so it just gives you visibility into the system. Now our equipment recommendations are still out of spec. The corner bedroom is right because it has the right number of fans, but we don't have any fans here in the master bedroom. And we haven't placed an air scrubber yet either, but you can see your progress along here. We can click show calculations, and this will tell you how it came to the fan and DHU and air scrubber calculations based off of your LGR DHU types, and it doesn't use the new IICRC S500 version 4 yet. We're implementing that right now, but it's how it got to these numbers, and we can hide this alarm if we want. So I'll hide it. And in a minute or so, the flags that are associated, this will start to clear out. When you have readings associated with drying chamber and all the affected areas, I'm gonna go ahead and plug in this extra reading. So the outside temperature, wherever this job was located. Where did you put this job at, Clint?
It should be Hickory Creek. I think I put Berkeley Drive address on there.
Oh yeah. So that's a really high GPP apparently. Yeah, at that address. So this is pulling the weather from that location. Yeah, it's probably right. So your technicians, hopefully the goal here is to save them some time. So then they just need to put in the inside unaffected. So let's say inside it's 75 and 25, and the AC is putting out 72, 22. So I will save that reading. And now you can see we have some chamber level readings down here. Eventually, once you've put in some readings and collected this stuff, and this is the part that works better on full screen. So I'm going to go ahead and go full screen. this humidity report will give you a table of what's going on with your DHUs, your chamber level readings. And once you have multiple readings right in this space, you can't see me pointing at the screen, I just realized. But right in this space, there'll be a graph to kind of show you how your DHUs are working and how your chamber's working, and compare that to the outside. So you have a real visual representation of what's going on in there. So when you're all done, you come over here, click pull equipment, and if the job is not dry, which clearly our job is not dry, then it's going to pop up and say, why are you pulling it before it's dry? Because the boss said to do it. And we'll click save, and it will create a journal entry. And when we come back to the main news feed in here, you'll see that we pulled equipment before it was dry, and then create these entries in the system. So there's a very clear log of what's going on, who's touching what, when they're touching it, and alarms and status indicators to help you track and maintain what's going on. So, any questions about drying?
No.
Have we